Let's talk about one of the most unbelievable sounds in rock history. I'm talking about that opening guitar riff from the Beatles' Revolution. It's not just a song, you know. It was a full-on attack on what everyone thought good music was supposed to sound like back in 1968.
So, to really get why this was so insane, you have to put yourself back in time. Imagine it's August 1968. You turn on the radio. What are you expecting? Something clean, right? Something polished. But then, this new Beatles song kicks in, and it's just something else entirely.
You see, the expectation was those clean, kind of jangly guitars of the mid-60s, maybe some nice strings in the background. But the reality of Revolution was this violent, angry, electric snarl. It seriously sounded like the speakers in your radio were about to just fall apart. This wasn't just a new sound, it was a total rebellion.
To understand just how revolutionary this all was, we got to look at the rules they were breaking. And to do that, we need to go inside EMI's Abbey Road studios, a place where perfection wasn't just a goal, it was the absolute law.
This right here tells you everything you need to know about the vibe in that studio. It wasn't some chill, creative hangout. It was more like a science lab. The engineers literally wore white lab coats. And in their world, technical perfection was everything. So something like distortion, that wasn't a cool effect you could add. No, it was considered a complete and total failure.
I mean, just look at how they defined it. Audio distortion was officially a technical error. It basically screamed that some amateur who didn't know what they were doing had gotten their hands on the equipment. It was something you were supposed to get rid of, not create on purpose.
So this was the golden rule. You've seen it on pretty much any piece of audio gear. A meter with a little needle. If that needle ever went into the red zone, it meant the signal was too hot. It was clipping. At EMI, that wasn't a suggestion. That was an error that an engineer had to fix, like right now.
Okay, so now we know the rules. Let's talk about how the Beatles, and John Lennon in particular, decided to just smash them. And this wasn't an accident, not by a long shot. This was a deliberate act of sonic rebellion.
See, Lennon couldn't care less about technical perfection. This was 1968, a year filled with protests and chaos all over the world. He wanted a sound that was messy, that was raw. He wanted the song to sound like the revolution he was singing about.
So how in the world did they pull it off? Well, their brilliant engineer, Jeff Emmerich, came up with this completely wild, rule-breaking idea. First, they plugged the guitars straight into the mixing console. No amp. That's called direct injection. But here's the real secret. They then daisy-chained it. They ran the signal through not one, but two preamps, one feeding into the other. The whole point was to create a massive, intentional system overload. And this is what that overload actually did to the sound wave. A normal, clean guitar signal looks like those nice, smooth, round waves on the left. But by pushing the signal way, way into the red, they totally crushed it. They flattened the tops and bottoms, turning it into the jagged, ugly square wave you see on the right. And that is the sound of pure electronic fury.
So they created this incredibly aggressive landmark sound. But the story doesn't stop there. The reaction inside the studio wasn't, wow, this is amazing. It was pretty much the opposite. The technical crew at EMI were horrified. They were genuinely afraid that this little experiment was going to permanently wreck their super expensive, pristine recording desk. And get this, even some of the other Beatles thought it was just too much. They called the track too heavy, and it was actually rejected from the White Album, at least in this form.
And here's the biggest irony of all. This sound that would change music forever, it wasn't even the main event. They put out a much slower, tamer version called Revolution 1 on the album. This fast, distorted beast was shoved onto the B-side of the Hey Jude single. It was basically an afterthought.
But it didn't matter if it was a B-side. Once that single hit the shelves, the secret was out. That sound was in the world, and it created a legacy that was literally forged in distortion, opening the door for a much, much rawer future in music.
And this is the real takeaway. By purposefully making what the entire recording industry thought of as bad audio, the Beatles completely changed the definition of what sounded good. They proved that a sound could be ugly, broken, and distorted. And in that ugliness, it could actually feel more authentic and way more powerful than anything technically perfect.
I mean, you can draw a direct line from this one song to the entire future of rock. That beautiful, ugly sound blew the doors wide open for hard rock, for heavy metal, and for punk. The Beatles showed everyone that sometimes to really be heard, you have to push that needle deep, deep into the red. Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on.
The Beatles broke the rules of their time to create something totally new. It really makes you wonder what rules, in music or anywhere else, are just sitting around today waiting for someone to come along and break them.